Yo! What is happening, everybody? Welcome back after a long layoff to the Raw Prospect Podcast. My name is Michael Ween, high atop a beautiful Houston, Texas. Saturday, June 22nd. We are officially in the months of summer, people. 10:30 p.m. live here on the Raw Prospect Podcast YouTube channel. If you're watching live, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, share with your friends who enjoy our content. Tonight, we have a big episode to return to our regularly scheduled programming and all sports encompassing biggest sports storylines gut check. We'll each ask each other 7-8 questions about anything in the world of sports. They can be open-ended questions. They can be like multiple choice questions where you give the person a bunch of options. They can be buy or sell questions. It can be anything, and we've each thought of the things that we want to ask each other. If you enjoy this kind of content, we're going to try to do more of these. We try to do them once a month. And then make sure that you are checking out all of our other content. I know it's been over a week in which we haven't had much at all, if anything, but we are back. And we will be back here for the next couple of weeks, putting out 3-4 episodes a week. So please like and subscribe. And joining me tonight for the first time in over a week, of course, my esteemed co-host, a man of many, many obligations, but a big sports fan just like myself, Mr. Emmy Nixon. What's up?
Nothing much, man. The last time we talked on this show, the Mavs were down 2-0, and I still had hope. I still was like, we can do this. We can make the comeback. Of course, that didn't end up happening. Congrats to the Boston Celtics. They ended up winning 5 games. Very much deserved. But we're gonna get into every single sport, not just the NBA tonight. I actually have a WNBA question lined up somewhere in here as well. About the Caitlin Clark stuff with the Team USA. So just about every sport you can think of, we're hitting on it tonight.
And to go off Emmy's point, it's the summer of soccer. You got the Euro Championship going on right now. They're in the group stage. And then just a couple days ago, Copa America started. And I have a U.S. men's national team fill in the blank kind of question for Emmy. So we'll see how that goes. We've got college football questions. We've got NBA questions. There have been some big news in the NBA, and there's more coming on Wednesday when the NBA draft happens, Monday or Tuesday night. Not sure which one yet. We're going to have a Dit Hole basketball-centric episode where we do some kind of NBA draft preview along with some college basketball stuff, which we haven't gotten into in a while. And tomorrow night, make sure you tune in around 9 p.m.-ish, I'm guessing, for our first episode of Dit Hole in a while. Big official visit weekends the past 3 weeks. We're getting into some big-time recruiting stuff that you guys are going to want to hear, especially if you're a fan of the Texas Longhorns and you pay attention to recruiting. But even if you don't, you want to hear about these big-time recruits that may or may not come to Texas. And some early betting lines from Vegas that have been released, as we're now, I think we're less than 70 days from college football, as crazy as that sounds. So with all that being said, let's get into this thing. I don't know who's going first. Do we flip a coin? Do we just...
I'll go first. I have a question in mind for you.
Okay.
Starting off with an NFL question.
Okay.
My question for you is, out of all the coaches in the NFL, name a coach that you think will be fired by season's end or before season's end.
Ooh. Good question. One that requires some thinking right off the bat. So a coach currently in the NFL that will be fired by the end of the season. So they could be fired mid-season or later on the season. Okay. Well, how many coaches were hired in this cycle?
think it was 7. I think it was 6
7.
or 7, I think,
6 or 7. So that rules out 6 or 7 coaches right away,
presumably.
presumably. Because you wouldn't think they would fire somebody, 10, 11 games in. But who knows? We live in a crazy world nowadays. And then you think of the coaches that aren't getting fired, no matter what happens, right? Tomlin, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys that aren't going to get fired. So that brings into the group of guys. There's probably 15 or 16 that are probably candidates for, like, you can rule out half the league, maybe a little over half the league. Like the Mike McDaniels aren't getting fired. I think, let me think. I got to go through each division here. So Green Bay, no. Minnesota, no.
I have a couple names, not necessarily answers to this question, but I think are interesting candidates for like sleeper getting fired. I don't know if that actually exists, but
NFC South.
a couple teams. I think if things go south for either say the Bears or even the Jets, I think we could see both of those, defensive head coaches out the door.
I definitely think you could see the Bears. Now, the question with the Bears is they just drafted Caleb. So do they want to give Caleb or do they want to give the coach? I believe it's goodness, I'm a little rusty today.
Matt Eberflus.
Matt Eberflus.
Yeah,
A defensive-minded coach. A defensive-minded coach. Do they want to give him more time potentially than say just half a season or something with Caleb, the chance to get the right coordinator and get it going there. They have a really nice looking roster offensively. Had a really good draft. I could see that. I could see where you're coming from with the Jets, but I actually think, and I could be wrong here, if things go south for the Giants again, I think Brian Daboll could be in trouble. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but you make the playoff 2 years ago, didn't have a great year last year. You made the decision to stick with Daniel Jones. If things don't go right this year, I start to wonder. Maybe he's not fired, by the end of the season, but I could see him definitely. I could see them having those conversations.
Yeah, I could see him being squarely on the hot seat after this season.
I'm trying to think of any other names. Maybe the coach in New Orleans, could he be in any kind of trouble?
Yeah, I definitely think he could be.
If things go south. I think of the defensive coaches who, in an offensive shifting league where the rules mostly favor the offense, where you need really good quarterback play to get into the playoffs most of the time and great quarterback play to win the Super Bowl. You need the wide receiver position is becoming more and more important, it seems, year over year. You need a good pass rush. Defense is still important, but in an offensive league and in a quarterback-driven league, I see these defensive coaches who have been now given a couple years, the Dennis Allens of the world. You talked about Matt Eberflus. Maybe I don't know what the situation in Buffalo is, but if things really went south there, could you see them make a change with Sean McDermott? I think those are the kinds of guys that you look at who could potentially be in trouble if things go south for their respective teams.
Yeah, that's what makes this question so interesting, is because there's so much parity right now that there's no way to really know for sure if a team is just going to be just awful, So
yeah, because even if, say, some of these young offensive-centric minded head coaches with good young quarterbacks have bad years, I don't know. Like, I think you could see a lot of these coaches who have already had some success to some degree on the offensive side of the ball be given a longer leash than some of these defensive guys. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, Matt Eberflus could be one, but the Bears improved so much at the end of last year.
Yeah.
They have basically entirely new offense when you really look at it. I think that's one that's less likely than, say, maybe a Brian Daboll if things go south, or a Dennis Allen in New Orleans. They've kind of struggled to figure out some things at the quarterback position since Drew Brees retired. Maybe Sean McDermott could be a wild card there, like one of the bigger names that could be in trouble.
Yeah, I think
I could see the Jets one.
I think you're on the right track with Dennis Allen. I think that's probably my answer.
I could see the Jets one, but yeah, great question. And I have a coaching question for you to start us off here. Except it's not in the program; it's in the college game. So my question centers around news that came down yesterday, and I'm not sure you saw it, but news came down yesterday that Oklahoma has given a 6-year extension to Brent Venables, their what will now be third-year head coach. Now, when I say 6-year extension, he signed back 2 years ago when he was hired. He signed a 6-year deal, and he's already coached 2 years. So he had 4 years left on his deal, but they just added 2 years, and they upped his salary. So this deal will take him through the 2029 season. So around when Sark will be wrapping up his new extension, maybe a year before that, I think. Anyways, his salary goes up to around $8.5 million per year over the next 6 years with this new extension. So it's not Sark level money, but he did get a significant raise. So my question to you is, with this extension, if you had to characterize Oklahoma giving head coach Brent Venables an extension based on his current resume through 2 years at Oklahoma, in one word, you would use blank. What word would you use to describe or to characterize Oklahoma giving Brent Venables an extension based on his current resume at Oklahoma through 2 years of being the head coach?
I would use the word belief, I guess.
Okay.
Just because, like, they believe in their guy. Like, that's, Brent Venables, we got to remember, was a really high level hire at the time he was hired at Oklahoma. His resume at Clemson speaks for itself. It feels like Clemson has kind of taken a step down since he's left that program, for a variety of different reasons, of course. But it is just the facts that he has left that program, and that program is now in a completely different, not even in the champion circle of college. Not even in the champion circle of college football anymore. Oh, that's got to be the case of the Mondays right there. Wow. Anyways, I just think they believe in their guy to get this thing done, and he's recruited decently well, and I think the defense clearly took a big step forward last year as well. I think there's reason to be positive here.
I don't disagree with you. The word I had in mind was premature, but at the same time, I do compliment Oklahoma for having this kind of belief in Brent Venables. You've hired him for a reason. He's entering his third season. You saw the year-over-year growth from year 1 to year 2. You have a young quarterback who's probably going to be your starter in Jackson Arnold for the next 2 years minimum, possibly 3 years. You want Venables with this current offensive staff. It's a new offensive staff. Jeff Lebby, their offensive coordinator, goes to Mississippi State to be their head coach. You want the new offensive staff with Brent Venables the way that he's been recruiting with, I think, a couple consecutive top 10 level classes. And to his credit, he's recruited a lot better than I thought he would, especially on the lines of scrimmage, than I thought he would coming in. And he's already turned over this roster and done a pretty good job in the portal from where it was in year one, where they were just bad especially on defense, but just bad. They won 10 games a year ago. They didn't win the conference. He hasn't won a bowl game, but they did finish number 15 in the AP poll for what it's worth. I think it's a little premature, but my overall point is I can totally see where OU is coming from. At the same time, if you don't extend them, how do you know that you're going to be able to get something better than Brent Venables, a guarantee on the box? Yeah. I don't know that you can right now, given the current state of the coaching carousel. 2 years for my liking, if I was running a program, would be a little premature, but I can see your viewpoint. Believe in your guy, and they did that, and good for them. So yeah,
I think also, like, you got to think about, like, what it tells the players too. I think in this current state of college football, where you're constantly recruiting your own roster and other rosters, and obviously actual recruiting too, I think it does wonders that, if I go to Oklahoma, the management is not going to just uproot my coach randomly, and I think that's a good way to show loyalty to those players that chose that coach as well.
Yeah, and I also think, like, to your point, Oklahoma doesn't want to change coaches in this transition to the SEC, no matter what happens. I had a follow-up question to that, but we'll save it for another time on Dithole, because that could sidetrack us a while. So we'll get into Oklahoma's schedule and their over-under win total here in the next couple weeks. But, yeah. All right, back to you. Question number 2. What do you got for me?
Let me see. Okay. All right, I've got a baseball question for you, MLB question.
Okay.
And I'm gonna let you interpret it however you want to interpret it. There's a lot of factors that go into this question, so feel free to take it wherever you want to take it. So It's kind of a 3-part question. So the question is, what team or what pitcher/closer would you want protecting the lead late in the Game 7 of, let's just say it's the World Series, just for fun. What team would you trust the most, needing to make a big comeback in the final 3 innings of a game? So big comeback, I'm going to let you set the parameters on that. 5 runs, 4 runs, whatever. And then the last part of the question is, what team would you want in a tie game going into the 9th?
Okay.
And that question would be assuming that the top of the lineup is up.
Okay. So your first question was?
Yeah, first question was a team protecting a lead late in the or protecting a lead in the 8th and 9th inning.
Okay. All right. So for this first question, off the top of my head, I've got to go with a lead going into the ninth inning of the current playoff teams. I would go with Emmanuel Clase, the closer for the Cleveland Guardians. I think their bullpen is excellent, and he is a disgusting. He's got disgusting stuff. He's got the fastball. He's got the swing and miss stuff. They have a couple other guys in their bullpen who are hard throwing, right-hand and left-handed pitchers. I think the Guardians, given some of the injuries to the Orioles staff and the Yankees bullpen kind of being a liability as of late, would be my pick right now for that question. If I had to pick a team in the National League, because I think there are a couple ways you can answer that, right? I mean,
yeah,
the American League and the National League. I mean, the Phillies bullpen's really good. It's been really good this year. I don't know exactly who their closer is as of right now, but they're first in bullpen ERA for what it's worth. So I think you can't go wrong with them or the Dodgers. But I think of all the playoff teams right now, I feel most comfortable with either the Guardians or the back end of the Mariners bullpen.
Yeah, the Mariners were on my short list of teams as well.
But I'll go with Emmanuel Clase and the Guardians. I think when he's on, aside from Edwin Diaz with the Mets, who aren't really relevant right now, he's probably the best stuff closer in baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. That's a good answer. Second part of that was making a big comeback in the last 3 innings of a game. So a team with, really just explosive power, I would say, and can score in bunches.
Baltimore, easily.
That's a pretty easy one.
Top to bottom, it's the hardest to poke holes in their lineup of any playoff team right now. Like even the Dodgers, you can poke a couple holes in their lineup.
Yeah.
Especially near the bottom. I don't really see that right now with Baltimore. So I'd go Baltimore there. And then your final question was?
Tie game going into the 9th inning. So
given the top of the orders up?
Yes.
I mean, I think
this is more of a star power type of question.
That question in the postseason, tie game going into the 9th, given your top of the order is up. I think we talked about this on our last baseball episode, the 2 best top of the orders in baseball. And you might be able to throw even the Orioles into this equation too.
Yeah.
But I still don't think the Orioles top of the order is as star power driven as the Yankees and the Dodgers. Yeah. So in the perspective league, I would go Volpe, Soto, Judge, given that they're healthy. And then, of course, you have to go probably answer 1A is Betts, Ohtani, Freeman. So those would be my answers for that question. Great question. I like that. I do really like that. Do you agree, or do you have any other answers that you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think the second question was a no-brainer. That was the Orioles easily. And I really wanted to think of like a baseball version of like a start bench cut type of situation, and that's what I came up with. So
okay. I'm gonna stick in the college sports realm for this question, then we'll move into the professional sports world with my next question. Have you heard about the big story right now in college football, where the Big 12 and Conference USA are contemplating or thinking about or exploring selling their naming rights to corporate sponsors.
Ooh.
So, for example, I think Josh Pate has talked about this on his show a couple times. The Big 12 had recently, I think, it had been reported they had been in conversations with Allstate to sell the naming rights to their conference. So it would be like the Allstate Conference or the Allstate 12 Conference.
Oh my God.
This is more. I know you're gonna laugh, but this is more. I think it's one to generate more revenue.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's a lot to this, but we're only going to get into the high level of it. So my question is, I didn't know if I assumed you had at least heard of this, but my
Yeah.
question is, and I give you three choices. What's your stance on the Big 12 selling its naming rights to a corporate sponsor? So it would no longer be the Big 12. It would be corporate sponsor something, right? A, you're totally against it. You're a traditionalist and you want to keep everything the way that it is. You want to keep the Big 12, the Big 12. That's A. B, you're absolutely in favor of it. You don't care what they do. It doesn't really matter to you. No matter who the sponsor is, you're fine with it. Or C, you're somewhere in between. It depends on who the sponsor would be. So A, you're totally against it. B, you're absolutely in favor of it. Or C, you're somewhere in between the two, and it depends on who the sponsor is.
Well, I think my feeling on it would probably be between B and C, just because with all the changes that are happening within college football, and the revenue sharing and all this new stuff that's being added into the sport, it just kind of feels inevitable. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure. I guess it would depend on the company for sure. Like, I can't imagine a conference that's like Hellman's Mayo conference or something. I don't know. Like, that would just feel icky. But I think if it's the right sponsor and it at least sounds decently okay, and then I'm okay with it.
Okay. So the story is, let me read you the first couple paragraphs of Pete Thamel's article when he broke this story on June 13th, so last week. And then I'll give you my quick opinion on it. The Big 12 is exploring selling its naming rights to a title sponsor with potential revenue of hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of the deal, sources told ESPN last Thursday. The commercial sponsor would potentially take the name Big out of Big 12 and replace it with the sponsor's name. It could end up as one of the largest commercial deals in collegiate athletics history, not including media rights. The conference, which has explored this option for the past 6 months, so they've been actually exploring this for a while now, it just hasn't been publicized, has had in-depth discussions and a decision is expected in the upcoming months, sources told ESPN. A deal could mean millions of dollars annually for the conference's member schools. The Big 12 distributed nearly $470 million to its member schools in overall distribution last year, and that number projects to be higher once its new media deal comes to fruition in 2025-2026. The project to be tens of millions of dollars less per school annually, that projects to be tens of millions of dollars less per school annually than those in the Big Ten and SEC, prompting the league to find new revenue streams. So this is basically an attempt to find new revenue streams. My opinion on it is I'm somewhere in between. I think it depends on who the sponsor is. In my opinion, the easiest route, to be fair, I did not come up with this. Someone had come up with it on Josh Pate's show, Late Kick, last week. Just get Southwest Airlines to be the sponsor and go back to being the Southwest Conference.
Ooh.
And That's the easiest thing,
like
I
that.
think. I didn't, again, that's not my idea. That was someone else's idea. So I took that from the Late Kick Show with Josh Pate. But that would be the easiest thing. I don't really love like the All-State 12 or some of these other ideas that they've been exploring. So I think I lie somewhere in between. But I do not blame the conference itself with its two biggest brands leaving the conference, Texas and Oklahoma, the two biggest revenue generators leaving the conference, Texas and Oklahoma. Even though you're bringing in some really good football programs in Utah and Arizona State's kind of been up and down. Colorado with Dion right now are a big revenue generator with the popularity around that program. It's still not Texas and Oklahoma, and I don't blame, the conference overall in being proactive and trying to find other revenue streams. So I'm somewhere in between. But
I think the Pac-12 collapsing definitely has these conferences on edge. Like it's adapt or die right now.
Yeah. And so that's my stance on it. I think we're kind of in the same ballpark. I do love the Southwest Conference idea. So I just was on Southwest Airlines today. So Southwest, if you're out there, if you're listening to this, maybe, go talk to the Big 12 Conference and see what you can work out there. Anyways, back to you.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Shoot, I hope that comes back to me. I had something good to say, but it's late, guys. I'll maybe it'll come back to me later.
You're up.
All right. Now for my WNBA question / Olympics question, I guess. So this one is not really a gut check question. It's more of just a conversation starter question. Like we can both just give our takes on what happened with this because we didn't really get the chance to do so when it came out. But the whole Caitlin Clark situation, with her not being on Team USA, what's your take on it? What's your feeling on it?
Well, the emotional basketball fanatic side of me says, why the fuck isn't she on the team?
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
It's arguably the biggest and most popular basketball figure, men's or women's, right now. She's generated so much popularity and growth in the women's game over the last year and a half, going back to last year at Iowa and now in the WNBA. I don't know how many
straight up growing basketball.
She's growing basketball overall, not only on the women's side, but the popularity of it worldwide. There are people that would never, and this is no offense to women's basketball. I love women's basketball, so do you. But there are people who would never have otherwise entertained the idea prior to Caitlin Clark of watching women's college basketball or watching the WNBA, watching an entire game for that matter, prior to when she became a thing, right? Now people are doing so. Like my mom, who really isn't all that into sports. She watches the big stuff, but she's not all that into sports. She'll sit down when Caitlin Clark's playing and watch basketball. That doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah.
I think from a popularity standpoint, from a storyline standpoint, from a pure basketball standpoint as well, like the things that she's doing right now in her rookie year, even though there's been some rough patches along the way, which we totally expected, like haven't really been done by anyone else. I don't know the exact milestones that she's reached as of right now, but the Fever are starting to win some more games lately. Yeah. From a basketball fanatic standpoint and from a popularity growing the game standpoint, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. But at the same time, like, she's a rookie. And I don't know whether we like it or not if they want that whole story, because she brings a big shadow with her, right? Because everyone's going to talk about Caitlin Clark, whether you like it or not. And there's a shadow that's cast on everybody else when you bring that along with you, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not. I do think that probably played into their decision making a little bit. Like, do we really want this whole circus going on with us while we try to go win a gold medal or whatever the case may be? So there's two sides of it. I'm more on the first side than I am the second side, but that's my general opinion on it as of right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on it, but like the more I looked into it, I saw that obviously like she had missed the practices since she was playing in the Final Four. Like that part of it, that makes sense. Okay, like she missed the practices. My thing is, why would you schedule it during the Final Four?
Yeah,
Like that just
I agree
I don't
with
know.
that.
That just doesn't really make sense to me. But regardless, I think some of the comments from the USA basketball head coach just seemed kind of strange, and it honestly made this whole story way worse. Like if it just was like about the practice thing and they left it at that, like people would have accepted it. But like the fact that the USA coach came out and was talking about how they didn't want all that, what you were just talking about, that shadow on the whole team and the circus and all that kind of stuff. They didn't want that. And that part definitely rubbed people the wrong way, and for good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, good conversation there. Okay. Do you want so left I have two baseball questions. One's a two-part baseball question. I've got a soccer question and I've got a NBA draft question. Which one do you want first?
Let's hear the soccer question. I'm curious what you came up with for that.
Okay, so the soccer question centers around Copa America, which started 2 days ago, and the U.S. men's national team is playing in it. And there are 4 groups, so I believe it's 16 teams, and the U.S. is in the group with Uruguay. However, they'll kick off their quest for Copa America 2024 tomorrow night against Bolivia. And then they'll play, I think it's Panama on Tuesday, and then they'll play Uruguay later this week. And I believe it's the top 2 teams that advance to the quarterfinals out of every group. Okay. But as you know, like there are 4 countries in South America that are generally thought to be a cut above the rest in this Copa America tournament: Argentina, Uruguay, and I think it's Brazil.
Right,
And
Brazil definitely.
Yeah.
Colombia.
Yes. So my question to you is, it's centric around the U.S. men's national team, and it's a fill in the blank question. And so here it is. The U.S. men's national team's best player is fill in the blank. The U.S. men's national team's most important player is fill in the blank. And those could be the same thing. It depends on how you interpret it. So their best player is who, their most important player is who, and the U.S. will make it to what stage of Copa America? Will they get knocked out? Will they not even make it out of their group? Will they make it to the quarterfinals and lose? Will they get to the semifinals? Will they get to the finals? What do you think? So it's kind of a 3-part.
Siri, show me the U.S. men's national team roster.
It's kind of a 3-part fill in the blank kind of question, if you will.
Okay. Off the top of my head, the best player in my mind would probably be Christian Pulisic, but I don't even know. Wait, okay. So it looks like he is playing. So I guess yeah. So
I
he's
can give
taking
you
his break from Chelsea, and he is playing. That's good. I'm gonna say our most important player is probably Matt Turner, our goalie, just because he's going to have to deal with a lot. He's going to have to, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but in 2014, when the U.S. made it out of the group stage in that World Cup, Tim Howard at the time, he played out of his freaking mind. So I think it's just obviously the U.S. like they're not on the level of these other teams, so it's gonna come down to just they're gonna have to defend really freaking well, and obviously the goalie is the last line of defense to that.
Okay, and then what stage do you think they'll advance to?
Let me look up who's in their group.
I believe it's Panama, Bolivia, and Uruguay. If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not super familiar with the Bolivian team, but if I had to guess, I think we can make it past the group stage. But I don't think we'll get first in the group, which will make it, a tougher matchup once we get out. We'll end up playing someone like Brazil or something, and then we're going to get cooked.
So my quick answer, I agree with you on the first part. The best player on the team is Christian Pulisic, who is 25 years old. He just actually finished his best professional season so far in his career, where he scored 15 goals and had 10 assists in Italy playing for AC Milan.
Right, he's not with Chelsea anymore. That's right.
Yep. He's our most dangerous attacker, and he's the leader of the team. I think he's the best player. He's pretty much just entering or is in the start of his physical prime as a player, so I think he's the best. I like your answer. The goalie is certainly an important player on any side. But I think you could also go with Gio Reyna. He's kind of been up and down the last couple of years.
That's the defender, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's had, the last couple of years for him have kind of been years in hell with injuries and uncertainty, off the field drama, but he's come back. His vision and his creativity really helped this team. As far as I know, he's established himself as a really good defender, irreplaceable energy and playmaker. And I think it's either him or the goalie. He's a game changer. He changes the dynamics of this team when he's on the field to a certain extent. And then I think I would agree with you. I don't think they're beating Uruguay, but I do think they'll hopefully fucking beat Bolivia and Panama. If not, we're in real trouble.
Panama is a pretty decent team.
Yeah. It's not going to be easy, but I'm hoping we can at least beat those two teams.
Hopefully.
And advance out of the group stage. Because
I think we just got to hope that, when Bolivia and Panama play each other, that they tie so that we can have an advantage when we play them.
This, as far as I know, is a really big event for our standing, wherever it may be, for the 2026 World Cup.
Definitely, yeah.
So we need some wins here. We need to accumulate something of significance for the World Cup, which will be hosting on our turf pretty much in 2026, which is...
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I didn't even know we made it into this tournament until you mentioned it earlier today. I think last time around 3 years ago, I don't think we made it into the Copa America.
A week ago, we had an embarrassing performance where we got blown out by, I think it was Colombia.
Oof.
But then we came back and we tied Brazil 2-2 in what was a much better performance. And so that's given some people some confidence. And the general sentiment I get from reading a little bit about this and from watching a couple of the first couple of games is there's the big four, the Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil
and
group
Colombia, right?
of favorites, and then there's Team USA in that tier 2. It's kind of how they grouped them, and so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But that's the soccer discussion for today. How about that? We don't get into a lot of soccer on the show, and so that's that. Back to you.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely fun to switch it up every once in a while. That's for sure. Okay. My next question. Let's see. Okay. So I kind of got to just think of one on the spot for NBA wise. The recent trade between the Bulls and the Thunder came out right after the finals, pretty much. Alex Caruso to the Thunder, straight up for Josh Giddey. What was your take on that trade?
Well, my initial reaction is bravo to the Oklahoma City Thunder once again for getting a good player and adding to this team.
Another one.
The Bulls,
stones at this point.
The Bulls, meanwhile, remain a land of the work in progress. Whatever that may mean to you for the Bulls, it is That's what it is.
Very nice way of saying it.
But yeah, I think Oklahoma City, I'd probably give them an A for this trade. I mean, without much hyperbole, you could probably say that Alex Caruso the past couple of years has been one of the most sought after role players in the NBA.
Yeah.
We've seen him defend Steph Curry at a pretty high level. We've seen him defend even Giannis at a really high level. He's a really good connective role player, good passer. He's steadily improving his 3-point shot. They need more shooting on that team. They're going to get some of it, hopefully, with Caruso, although I think they still could use more of it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's made nearly 41% of his attempts from out there last year. And so he's getting better. He fits onto really any roster in the league, given his skill set. He's not going to give you a ton of scoring, but he does a lot of the other stuff that's required for – and he's one of the better role players in the league in whatever kind of role you want to put him in. So naturally, he lands on a team that, you know, if you pair that with Lou Dort defensively, and now you're really talking about something dangerous on the defensive end of the floor. I think for the Thunder, just straight up player for player, they got better. From a Bulls standpoint, I don't really know what to think of it. I guess I'd probably give them a C minus. Look, I mean, it's a nod to Josh Giddey's talent. He's a really good passer. He can score inside the arc. He rebounds pretty well for his position. But, you know, he has his issues. He has his flaws. Yeah. They're trading for a very specific sort of player, one that I'm not sure they're necessarily equipped to maximize right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you kind of do with that, but that's my general take on the trade.
Yeah, the thing to me about Josh Giddey is, like, he's not a super explosive athlete. So when it comes to, like, finishing around the basket, he's not going to jump out the gym. So he ends up having to kind of go to a lot more, finesse around the basket. And that's a little bit more, hot and cold from that aspect. Like floaters and those types of shots, those are a lot tougher shots than, getting all the way to the rim and elevating, But and just because of that, I don't know if I really see a point where I can see him developing into a elite scorer. I could see him developing into a good scorer. Don't get me wrong, but um, if we're talking about someone to pair next to Kobe White, I don't know. Like I really don't know because I think Kobe White is someone who needs the ball in his hands to be most effective. He's decent off the ball, but to get the most out of him, like what we saw this year, he's got to have the ball in his hands. Like we saw him average over 20 points per game this year. So now you're taking the ball out of Kobe White's hands and giving it to a non-shooter who's going to kind of get the Ben Simmons treatment. I don't really like it. But the Thunder fucking terrify me, man. They fucking terrify me. This is like the first move of many. They have a ton of cap space. They have a million draft picks.
Yep.
They're gonna trade for somebody, and I'm fucking scared. I'm terrified.
I agree with you. I have an NBA question, but we'll go to it next. I want to go baseball, basketball, and then back to baseball to finish. So I have a good buy or sell question for you. Okay. Earlier this week, news came down that one of the greatest, if not the greatest baseball player of all time, Willie Mays, passed away at the age of 93. So here's my buy or sell, just to get straight to the point. Buy or sell. Shohei Ohtani may be the best baseball player ever, but there shouldn't be any doubt that Willie Mays, who just recently passed away at the age of 93, is the greatest baseball player of all time. And to be clear, I interpret best and greatest as two different things.
Yeah.
So buy or sell. Shohei Ohtani may be the best baseball player ever, but there shouldn't be any doubt that Willie Mays is the greatest baseball player ever. Buy or sell.
I'd buy that. I mean, I think where we stand right now, Shohei hasn't played a playoff game. Obviously, all the accolades in Japan, and obviously the MVP awards. I mean, you can't discount those completely, but nothing does it like playoff success. Like getting a hit in a big moment, hitting a home run in a huge moment in the World Series. Like there's no replacing that on a resume in terms of like all-time great baseball players. It's kind of the reason why Barry Bonds isn't really thought of in a very like positive way, like nostalgia wise, just because he had so many moments in the playoffs where he kind of just laid a dud. So that part is kind of yet to be seen with Shohei. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, I wrote the question that way because I 100% buy it that way as of right now. Talk to us in 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little different. But as of right now, I do think, like, for example, if you're not too familiar with the way that I talk about this, or some people do, the way I kind of view this is greatest is most accomplished. Best is most ability.
Yeah.
Best on the field. So like an NFL example that I hear used a lot is, well, the greatest quarterback we've ever seen is Tom Brady, but the best quarterback we've ever seen is Aaron Rodgers. I think it's kind of the same thing here. I think Ohtani, with his size, with obviously his well-roundedness to his game, the ability to pitch at a Cy Young kind of level, and the ability to hit at an MVP level, we've never seen it before. His on-field ability, along with his speed at that size, as basically a 6'7" tool player when you consider that he's a pitcher too, is the best we've ever seen. It's better than Babe Ruth because players are just more advanced and more skilled nowadays than they were back then. It's not a shot at Babe Ruth. It's just a matter of the fact. But the greatest ever is Willie Mays. He's the greatest center fielder of all time. 24 All-Star appearances. I don't know if anyone will ever come close to matching that. He won the World Series in 1954, where he made one of the greatest catches, if not the greatest catch in baseball history. He had 2 MVPs himself, so he's matched Ohtani in that department. Ohtani might pass him eventually, but that is what it is. He was a Rookie of the Year. He won 12 Gold Gloves, something just by virtue of position Ohtani probably will never do. He was a batting champion. He led the National League in home runs 4 times. He led the National League in stolen bases 4 times. He hit 4 home runs in 1 game on April 30th, 1961. He has his number retired by the Giants and the Mets. He's in the San Francisco Giants Wall of Fame. He's on the Major League Baseball all-time team. He's in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1979, where he was inducted. And in his career, he hit 660 home runs and finished with a 301 batting average, with almost 2,000 runs batted in and 339 stolen bases. That's a lot of data, but to sum it up, in terms of accomplishments, I don't know if there's anyone that matches Willie Mays with the 24 All-Star appearances, the 2 MVPs, the World Series championship, the 12 Gold Gloves, the batting champion. I mean, it's just unbelievable career. So, rip to one of the greatest baseball players, if not I think the greatest baseball player ever. So that's my question.
When you mentioned 1952, it really hit me like, wow, like he lived 93 years. Like that's like, wow, like he lived a long, fulfilling life. I mean, good for him, man.
Yeah. It's an unbelievable career. All right, back to you. If you have another question, or I can go back to back. If you want.
Go ahead and go back to back, and I can think of one after.
Okay. So I have a NBA draft related question for you, and it's San Antonio Spurs centric, of course. I'm going to give you a scenario, and you're just going to tell me what you do in this scenario. So the Spurs have 4 picks this year. They have the number 4 pick, which is their own pick. They had the number 8 pick, which was conveyed to them from Atlanta, from that DeJounte Murray trade. It was, I believe, top 6 protected. So if it fell outside the top 6, it was conveyed to the Spurs. They got that pick. So they have the number 4 pick, the number 8 pick, and then they have 2 second-rounders, number 35 in the second round and number 48 in the second round. But for the sake of this conversation, we're only really talking about the 4th pick, okay? So my question to you is the draft is on Wednesday. So given that Wemby's fellow Frenchman, one of his fellow Frenchmen, and one of the best players in this draft, maybe even the number 1 pick, Zachary Riacher is gone and off the board at number 4. And you, as the general manager of the Spurs, have the choice of taking either Steph Castle from UConn or Reed Sheppard from Kentucky. Who would you take to fit with Wemby if you only had the choice between those 2 players, and why?
You know what? I off the top of my head, I probably would lean Stephon Castle.
Interesting.
Just from a tool standpoint. In all honesty, like I didn't watch a whole ton of Reed Sheppard, and the game that I did watch, it was a rough game. He had a rough night. But obviously, like, I do think he will have his challenges defensively in the NBA. I think he's going to compete. Like, I think he has the lateral quickness to kind of be able to hold his own from that standpoint. But from a strength standpoint, I think that's where the problems are going to come into play. I think Stephon Castle is a little bit further down from that standpoint in terms of having a NBA ready body. So I would lean him, and I think alongside Wemby, I think he can develop his offensive game. And in these early years with the young team the Spurs are going to have, they're going to have to make their calling card on the defensive end.
Yeah. I don't know that you can go wrong.
Yeah.
The plus side to Shepherd is he's the best shooter in the draft. And when you look at the Spurs, they don't have a whole lot of that right now, given that aside from Devin Vassell, they pretty much traded away their best shooter otherwise in Doug McDermott at the deadline. And even then, like, he wasn't giving them much. They need shooting around Wemby. And the downside to Castle is he really hasn't fully developed his outside jumper yet. He doesn't really have that yet. But given the history with the Spurs development and their coaching staff, given Castle's athleticism, his size, his defensive ability, his willingness to play point guard, I do think Shepherd probably gives you better, like, on-off ball movement, like better movement off the ball, creating shots when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. But I do think Castle, once he develops his outside shot, can develop kind of into something like that. Maybe not reach Shepherd level.
And the good thing is he already understands how to move off ball. Playing.
And he can be kind of the combo, another combo guard for you in the way that I think Devin Vassell can be as well.
Yeah.
And I think you want as much versatility around Wemby as you can get. He's got the plus length to cover the court, play stifling point of attack defense, something the Spurs need, and they need in bunches, right? And if he gets too aggressive early on in his career on the defensive end of the floor, well, what do you have behind you? You have Victor Wembanyama.
You have an alien behind you.
Yeah. He fits the bill. And to go along with all the other reasons that we'll get into on our NBA draft episode, maybe possibly Monday or Tuesday, like, I kind of lost my train of thought. The rumors are that the Spurs are in love with Stephon Castle. So,
okay,
that's that.
Yeah, and I'll add this point too. I think the finals showed us the importance of point of attack defense. We saw constantly the Celtics dribble drive, blow by. Like, if you don't have great point of attack defenders, it's going to be really, really difficult to overcome that and play great defense when you're playing a team like the Celtics or a team like the Nuggets. Like, it's just too much to overcome, no matter how good your rim protection is or your rotations are.
Yeah, and the only other point I would add is, while I love his fit, one of the big concerns I would have is, as of right now, putting a lineup out there that has both Castle and Jeremy Sohan, given both of their shooting deficiencies to a certain extent. I do think Castle, more so than Sohan, probably becomes a passable shooter at the NBA level eventually. He's not there yet. But if they were to go with Castle, you might want to try to – you might have no choice because they really don't have anybody else. But in an ideal world, which might not exist right now if you're the Spurs, you'd probably want to try to minimize lineups with those two on the floor as much as possible until one of them develops more of it to be more of a threat from outside, or else it's going to be a little more of the same thing that it's been for the past couple of years. But at the very least, like, you get a good point of attack defender who's going to be a solid role player for you and can still score, just not from the outside from an extended, outside jumper standpoint. So I think if you want more of the shooting, you go with Reed Shepherd. But if you want a lot of the other stuff, but not so much the shooting, you go Castle. Maybe the more toolsy player, you go with Castle. And Castle, I believe, is younger than Shepherd. So that could be another thing that plays into that. We'll talk more about that on Monday or Tuesday. But one more question each, and let's wrap this thing up. So I'll hand it off to you.
I decided to go with another NBA question.
Okay.
I couldn't think of anything for the NFL, unfortunately. But NBA-wise, my question for you is, which Eastern Conference team do you have the most confidence in challenging the Boston Celtics moving forward? So the Sixers, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Heat, the Pacers. Which one of those stands out to you as a team that can make the moves, can improve from within enough to not necessarily beat the Celtics, but challenge the Celtics?
I immediately go to either the Sixers or the Knicks. But I think I would go. I don't know that there's enough that you can do if you're a team like Milwaukee or Indiana to really challenge the Celtics. I think if Embiid's healthy and the Sixers were to make a move or two, I'll go with the Knicks. I think the Knicks are scrappy enough defensively, and I think they have a big move coming somewhere eventually to elevate them to another level. So I'll go the Knicks. But I think I wouldn't argue with you if you went Philadelphia because they have the cap space and the picks to make something happen.
No, I'm right with you. I'm there with the Knicks as well, honestly. I think the Knicks are kind of Miami Heat North, but like with more depth.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of feels like right now. And obviously they got to re-sign OG, and there's definitely some moves to be made in terms of adding some other scoring options. But if you think about what they did without their second best scorer this year, Julius Randle, I mean, there is a lot to be, excited about for the Knicks. I think from a physicality standpoint, they pose a lot of the problems that the Heat kind of present to the Celtics. And obviously with Porzingis now, that does change things. But I do think the Knicks would be the best bet to give the Celtics a good fight, just because the Celtics have the Sixers number no matter who they add in free agency. Like, they could add freaking Jesus and they would still lose. Like, I don't have any confidence in them.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's wrap this thing up. This is kind of a two-part question, but it'll go pretty fast. But I got to set it up for you. So it is an MLB question, and it's kind of a panic/concern meter question. Okay. It's player-centric. But it's not on a scale of 1 to 10. Let me explain. So for each of the following players, and there's two players, one from the National League that I've chosen and one from the American League that I have chosen. And you're going to choose for each of the following players, you're going to choose from one of the three categories that I have created that characterizes your level of panic/concern for these players, okay? And so I'm going to tell you the categories right now. And I made these up on the plane today. So here you go. First category is no concern. The haters can go fuck themselves. That's the first category. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Second category is the smoke detectors going on. There's not a fire yet.
Okay.
You're worried, but there's no reason to panic because there's not really a fire in the area. Okay. And then the third category is 5-alarm fire. Evacuate all faith that you have in this player. Tell all the fans to go fuck off. Like, don't even care about this player anymore this season because it's just been that bad. All right, so those are your three categories. If you need me to repeat them, I can repeat them for you. The first player, though, that I am going to ask you about is Julio Rodriguez from the Seattle Mariners. Now, obviously, let me set it up a little bit for you. This question stems from the fact that I think from both of our standpoints in the preseason, Rodriguez, while he hasn't been terrible, hasn't taken that step that we expected him to take to being one of the top 5 players in the American League, to being an MVP kind of candidate. He's hitting 264, but his on base is 314, which is just kind of average.
Yeah.
He's slugging 353, only has 7 homers this year, 29 RBIs. His numbers are down from where they were last year. However, he is in the 90th percentile in terms of hard hit rate. So he's hitting the ball hard still. He's not getting the results that we necessarily expected him to. So, given just that information, whatever else you've seen or heard about Julio lately, given that context, which category would you characterize your level of concern for Julio? Would you say, no concern, go fuck yourself, haters? Smoke detector going off, no reason to panic yet, but we are a little worried, or 5-alarm fire, evacuate, or you might be dead. Which one?
Okay. You know what? I'm going to say no concern. I'm going to say no concern. I think Julio Rodriguez, hitting is so weird, man. Hitting a baseball is so fucking hard. And Julio Rodriguez doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would let his confidence get wavered. I think it's just a slump, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Altuve go through these. We've seen some top guys go through some slumps. So I'm not concerned. I think he'll come around. And the good news is, if you're the Mariners, you lead your division, and you have a bit of a cushion on the Rangers and the Astros now. So, and that's with your best, most powerful hitter, quote unquote, slumping. So, if he comes around, say, late August, and they push this thing towards the playoffs, he gets hot, then we may be looking at a contender.
Yes, no concern. You're absolutely right. You nailed it. There was a correct answer to that question, by the way. He's hitting the ball too hard to be concerned. I think it's going to change over the next 3.5 months at some point. We saw him really get hot after the All-Star break last year. I think he's well equipped to do the same thing. And if you're the Mariners, you'd rather have him really take off then than now. Because it'd kind of be like half a trade acquisition if he starts playing at an MVP level or he elevates to that level after the All-Star break, when around the time of the trade deadline. So I agree with you there. Okay. I chose one National League player. This answer could be a little different, though. Okay. On our last baseball episode a couple weeks ago, where we did the burning questions, we talked about this team. And we had two different, I think, viewpoints on it. The Arizona Diamondbacks. The next player is Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so his 2024 stats, he's batting .217 with a .308 on base and a .322 slug. Not good. He's got 2 home runs and 23 RBIs. And his average exit velocity this season is 87 miles per hour. Not good at all. As a rookie last year, he hit .285, 25 home runs, 65 extra base hits, and had 54 stolen bases in 59 attempts. So he's only thrown out 5 times. And he finished 5th in MVP balloting in the National League. So this is a big step down so far for Corbin Carroll. And it's resulted in kind of a disappointing season so far for the Diamondbacks. So of the 3 categories, no concern, haters go fuck themselves. Smoke warning, you're worried, but not quite panicking yet, since it still is only June. Or sound the 5-alarm fire, evacuate all faith in Corbin Carroll. Which one are you at?
I'm slightly worried.
Okay.
I would say 2 home runs.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking brutal. I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay. Well, this article was written yesterday, so if he's hit a home run between yesterday and today, forgive us. But still, I mean that's
3 home runs, and also like the on base percentage is a big deal to me also, because one of his biggest weapons is his speed, and he can't do anything with it if he's not getting on base. So
that's a great point.
That does seem that might even be more concerning than the home runs part, because like he's not the most powerful dude ever to begin with.
No.
So his main thing is going to be like dominating the base path. So, gosh,
I'm right there with you. I think you nailed both of them, by the way. Good job to you. It's June 22nd. So we're a good portion of the way into the season. Like, we're a couple weeks away from the All-Star break. So it's not like it's still early. It's only early May, and he's still got a ton of time to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
But we've seen players go into long slumps before. We've seen them kind of hit, like we talk about this all the time in football or basketball. They hit the sophomore slump or the sophomore wall or whatever they like to call it. I think that could be the case with Corbin Carroll. And to his defense, like, the Diamondbacks' slow start is not only his slump, it's the players around him not performing to the level they were last year. So he doesn't have as much protection around him in the lineup that he did last year when they made that run. But at the same time, like, when did the Diamondbacks really get good last year? It was not until after the All-Star break. It wasn't really until late July, early August. So will they do the exact same thing they did last year, this year? Maybe not. Maybe so. Who knows? It's baseball. We don't know what the fuck's going to happen in the next 3.5 months. But it is a little concerning. Like, bruh, you were 5th in MVP last year. You're You're barely above the bare minimum Mendoza line of 200
Jeez.
this year, and your power has been completely zapped for whatever reason. What's going on here? It's a little worrisome.
Is this a Monstars situation?
I don't know.
Are we watching Space Jam, or what would the baseball version of that be? Space Slam?
Yeah. I think that's a fun game, though. I did have a couple more players that I was maybe going to ask you about, but we'll keep it to that for tonight. Some of the other players that I thought could have been mentioned in this conversation, Abo Bichette from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Hmm.
I thought about asking you about him. George Springer from the Toronto Blue Jays. Thought about him too. There are a couple others. Matt Olson from the Braves, not necessarily having the kind of season I thought he would. Yeah.
It's been a tough year for the city of Toronto. Drake's in the dumps. The Raptors suck.
Sorry,
Blue
Toronto.
Jays kind of suck.
Sorry, Toronto. At least you got the championship back a couple years ago. Adolis Garcia, surprisingly, is not having the season I thought he would, coming off of what he did last year in the postseason. So, is that it? Is there anything else you think of right now that you want to get real fast out of the way?
No,
I guess the one thing is like initial reaction to the inevitable, I guess, happening. JJ Redick being hired by the Lakers.
Yeah, that is something. Yeah, I mean,
just your quick reactions to it. We can get more into it later, but
I'm kind of sad actually. Like I actually really liked JJ as a podcaster, so we're losing a really good media member, which is kind of and the fact that they got rid of JVG and Mark Jackson the year before too. It's like, now what? But anyways,
I haven't.
Hire,
listen,
I'm in wait and see mode on it, to be honest.
I've been on vacation. I haven't gotten too much into the details of the minutia of thinking about it, how it works out from a basketball standpoint, what do the Lakers need to do to make this work, all that stuff. I haven't gone that far yet. And there's certainly, like we talked about last time, a lot of volatility going on right now. When we talked about the Dan Hurley situation, we said, like, this job is about as volatile and weird as it can get, right? There's a lot that can change in the next couple months. But at the same time, I kind of side with Colin Cowherd's initial reaction. That's saying something, considering I respect Colin, but I don't really always agree with his opinions or takes. But his initial reaction basically just was, yeah, it's interesting. That's what the Lakers are. Like, I don't have an opinion right now, one way or the other, but it's interesting.
That is such a Colin thing to do.
And kind of give the shoulder shrug. That's kind of where I stand right now.
By the way, that Colin Cowherd impression was chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
Thank you. I'm getting better at it. You heard the yo at the beginning of the show.
Yeah,
maybe we'll do
I don't know how he started. I don't know how. I would love to hear the story on how he started doing his intro like that.
Maybe we'll do
the story every show. He goes,
Maybe we'll do the
Oh, no.
Okay. Reminder, everybody, Dit Hole, deep in the heart of Longhorn sports. Big time tomorrow night. Around 9 p.m., wouldn't you say, Emmy?
Yeah.
Lots and lots of recruiting goodies. And not so goodies, actually. And then some betting stuff for college football. And maybe one Texas basketball story mixed in. I don't know. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
Is Is Rodney Terry cooking again? It's June 22nd. What is he doing? We'll see. We'll get into that. And then I expect to have another, I don't know if it'll be a dit hole yet or just a regular episode, but something Monday or Tuesday that's NBA draft centric. And then beyond that, there will be something else. Maybe a couple something else's. But we really haven't had the time to discuss that yet. So, given all that, thank you guys for tuning in on a Saturday night where you could be doing a lot of other stuff here at almost midnight. But hopefully you guys enjoyed
episode.
Like an
OG episode.
If you like the all sports gut check style, what we did tonight, let us know and we'll do more of it. It's easy. We just have to come up with questions for each other. We don't have to do much prep.
Yep.
You and I generally know at a high level what's going on in the world of sports because we keep up with it.
I did my prep on the show today. I mean, I went to Siri for the national team roster.
Maybe we'll do one where we get fan questions and we just answer all the fan questions both. That I guess that'd be more kind of a mailbag. But anywho, let us know and make sure you tune in and go check out every other show on our Twitter feed or on our YouTube page under the live section. You can also find us on Twitch, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All of our content's also on Twitch if you prefer that way. But until tomorrow night, we're out for this Saturday night, June 22nd. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Peace out.